when I had my first panic attack ever. I think 2 days I was staring at my prescription. मैं दवाई ले रही हूँ. It's I'm scared actually to be in that case really tough. So when a patient comes to me and said that और नहीं हो रहा,
Hmm.
थक गई हूँ अब बस. And I'm like, I know. I feel LinkedIn has given me a lot of unconditional support, honestly.
I myself developed insomnia. Every day I hope that, okay, please make this the last night that I don't sleep. Please make this the last time that I don't sleep. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside Out with Soumya. In today's conversation, we'll be discussing the mental health struggles of mental health professionals based on the personal experiences and journey of a dear colleague and myself. We'll be touching on themes like barriers that come in the way of accepting these struggles, its impact on our work, and unique ways of managing and balancing it while showing up for our clients. It's going to be an intimate and sensitive conversation. I can feel that already. And I honestly, I couldn't have, I honestly couldn't have thought of a better guest speaker than you, Sanjina. So thank you for coming in here. How are you?
Thanks, Soumya, for the invite. I think I'm doing good. So, yeah.
I like it. I think I'm doing good.
Yeah, the think about mental health. So, yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's so weird. This question, how are you? It's such a cliche thing. We open up so many conversations with it, but there's no straightforward answer to it.
No, that's very true. I think anytime I see my patients, you just do your courtesy wala thing. आइए, कैसे हो? And then I'm like, मेरे पास आए कैसे होंगे? Like,
Yeah, I start,
oh,
okay, how are you? Then they give me the cliched responses
you
that
should,
I'm good. And then I ask, okay, how
huh.
are you really? That is when the
Yeah.
conversation starts.
हाँ. So that's how it usually actually goes. कि,
True,
हाँ, अब बताइए. And then they like,
true,
शायद
true.
उतना ठीक नहीं भी हूँ.
Actually, and
Yeah.
I sometimes think like it'll be so funny if someone asks me, how are you? And I actually tell them, how much time do you have? Because
Yeah.
I cannot give you a good yes, okay, not so good answer.
Yeah. I think that's your thing. Like, I'm not fine, but let's just end it at fine.
Yeah.
I think
Okay,
that's how
that's a
people are.
good place to start off our conversation today, which is
Yeah.
around the mental health struggle. So, how about we start off with some introduction, you introducing the listeners, the viewers with your professional background, and also if you want to mix it up with your personal background as well, that will be great, Sanjina.
So I think my background, I have the very cliched answer. I'm a clinical psychologist registered with RCI, so I've done the standardized degrees, bachelor's in psychology, master's in psychology, and then I did my MPhil in psychology. So I think personal introduction, personally, I think my personal and professional have somehow now blurred together, and my
Mhm.
identity is somehow my career has become my whole and soul identity. It's sort of like that. So I think that's that
Occupational
about me. Yeah,
hazard. It
yeah.
is an occupational hazard. It's so hard to draw a line where your therapist self ends and where your personal self starts.
No, that is true. I think it's also about it's just sometimes you just start ingraining it in yourself. Like Rose, you talk about people and you talk about mental health, and you start somehow the thing about psychology is I started reflecting more.
Mhm.
And वो reflection more के चक्कर में I think इतना in depth चला गया that the internal insecurities and everything came out.
Yeah.
But I think that was also good that that self-reflection sort of indicated towards that, okay, something is not okay. And I think I finally know what's not okay.
Mhm.
Although it was during my MPhil only, but yeah, I think that's how sort of I came about understanding myself better also.
Definitely, definitely. And while you were saying that you have a cliched response about your professional self, let me add a little bit to that thing. And if I go back to our master's time, which is where it happened to meet as well, we spent 2 years in Chennai. I remember you as one of the most resourceful person, and I think this was a established fact. You need a book, you need an article, you need a publisher. I mean, whatever you need, you ask Sanjina. Either she will have it or she'll know how to get it.
Yeah, yeah.
She's a really, really rich store of information that way. And
Hmm.
not just on paper, even when we ask you things, you know a lot. And I've always been in, oh, how do you retain so much information in that brain?
I think that's more like the curiosity कि अच्छा
Uh-huh.
so ऐसे शुरू हुआ तो okay ये भी पढ़ ही लेते हैं but the thing is I think I know ऊपर ऊपर से then it's just that कि ठीक है only once you start seeing a patient like okay
Uh-huh.
now it's time to read the in-depth but I think it's for with me it's still the same.
Mhm.
I'm still the resource person in my office. I'm still the resource person in every group. But
I know even
yeah,
on WhatsApp groups, random
yeah.
people are asking you questions. You're the first one sending, okay, ये book ले लो, ये paper ले लो, यहाँ
Yeah.
वाली website refer करो. And it's
Uh,
wonderful to relive the college times like that on
yeah.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Definitely. And
Uh,
talking about academic background,
hmm.
college, masters, MPhil, how about let we start from there only? When we're talking
Yeah,
about
sure.
mental health struggles,
Hmm.
how would you rate your experience in these educational institutes and when it came to desensitizing or even
Hmm.
educating about the struggles that a mental health professional can also go through?
Hmm. I think what I'll do is I'll start from the very beginning, like the
Yeah.
bachelor's bit. Because so see, honestly, for me, psychology happened by chance. I didn't want to get into medical. I got into psychology. Simple.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so, but I think that was more like a building stage. So उस समय it was more about getting to know about psychology कि आगे do I want to pursue it or not? अब enter तो कर
Mhm.
लिया है. Now what? So I think that was that. So nothing much came about it, but I won't say mental health particularly, but I had a whole personality transformation from being an introvert to a more vocal person to be able to stand up for myself.
In
Earlier,
bachelor's?
in bachelor's, yes. So,
Mhm.
so if you saw me in the school, you would see me in some corner, isolated. Like people used to know me then also. ऐसा नहीं
Yeah.
था. Not with resources, but different reasons. I was in the
Yeah.
same school for 14 years, but I don't know. Somehow my emotions were not very regulated well, and I never felt understood in my school. So that's why I sort of dread my school days, like because a lot of things were going on, so not good. But once I entered bachelor's, it was then studying psychology, getting to know the field. It sort of, I don't know, something inside me felt peaceful.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't explain exactly what changed, what, but I felt, you know what, now I'm on the right track. And that's how this happened, right?
Yeah.
We all were in this, and one class where we all used to cry.
Yes, PIDC class.
PITC, yes. So personal, interpersonal development of the counselor. And oh my God, the things that opened up, I think that is when things finally came on the surface. Earlier, so let's say bachelor's mein, I grew up as a
Mhm.
person, as sort of having a personality transformation, being more vocal, being more also I would say developing a spine and to stand up for myself. But
Mhm.
this is where I felt like I am a human and I should be able to experience my emotions without any shame. I could cry.
Yeah.
I think right. So also my
That's a
flatmates.
very powerful
Huh,
statement to make,
huh,
Sanjina.
So I see. There used to be days when I used to cry like anything. Bachelor's में school days में academic. I was always somebody who's strength sort of how our education system sort of like कैसे घोड़े की तरह just look at the
Yeah,
academics,
yeah,
forget yourself.
completely.
I remember I can now see that I was burnt out in 12th. I was completely burnt out, and psychology also gave me that release. So from that burnout, now in masters, I learned to express and respect my emotions. But there were also a lot of things. It was like a closed book that suddenly opened up, and I could not give it a proper ending also. I'm not sure how do I like exactly frame it, but let's just say it's sort of you get to know the beginning of a story and it just ends in a cliffhanger. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what something happened. And then we had the IDC when we, you remember we did the CBT worksheets, the if
Yes.
so, then what, and coming to the core beliefs. And I think I was doing it with Devika only, or probably somebody else. So I think this person I was doing, I think I was doing it with Devika, but so, and then we did the if so, then what would happen? So if so, then what would happen? And then I realized, oh my God, the need for perfection I have, the need
Uh-huh.
to prove myself, the need, although my self-esteem isn't right now very great, wasn't very great then either.
Mm-hmm.
But I think us samay, it just sort of gives sort of like the aha moment happened.
Mm-hmm. During that
Ah,
worksheet.
yeah, during that worksheet. So, and then you do the core belief thing, right? So you name it, I had the core belief. I felt I was incompetent, I wasn't worth
Mm-hmm.
it. I think so. The whole build up towards it gave me an insight. Ki, okay, this is what is happening,
Mm-hmm.
and it is actually a real thing, and it's not something just not inside my head.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and see, seeing a client, you are very empathetic to. Not empathetic, let's say compassion. Empathy for me is very difficult, honestly. It's not that easy to be in their shoes.
Yeah.
So for me, what I see empathy is I think I cannot empathize with the situation, but I can empathize with your feeling. I know
Mm-hmm.
how it feels to be hurt. I know how it feels to be rejected. So
Definitely.
my usually practice goes, let me empathize with the feeling. And when a client comes to me, I would say, ki, no, not, you're not unworthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, we do all our things, work and everything. But I think I could not somehow get it back to me. But that worksheet somehow opened up a whole horizon, let's say, for me, because that's when I realized, so I think something to think about. And for therapy, so see, with therapy was I went for a total of 2 sessions. You remember we were supposed to go for the supervision thing,
Yeah. So that
है
was
ना?
the
तो
first time that you saw
हाँ हाँ
therapy during your master's?
हाँ हाँ
Okay.
that was the first ever time. I used to think जाना है, but finances और कैसे कहाँ से निकालना है. No, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't
Now,
get pocket money
we
or
were not living in
हाँ
a very great and
yeah
accessible
yeah
place for
हाँ हाँ
therapy as well.
वही तो I didn't even used to take pocket money. I was just like मम्मी पापा कर देते थे सब तो ये वाली नीड रियलाइज भी नहीं हुई कभी ना. So only in the masters that I realized कि this is also where I think a very basic thing, it's okay to ask for help. I think let's say Naina, Purvai, Devika, me were living in the same flat. They have seen me crying.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, I'm crying in front of people. But then
Uh-huh.
that's again, I would say that I'm only human. कितना दबाऊंगा मैं?
Absolutely.
Like, a lot going on. And TIDC ने ऐसा बुक खोला कि फिर तो लगा कि oh my God. So I did go to a therapist and I went for 2 sessions. Okay?
You went for
So 2 sessions.
2 sessions.
That
Okay.
was so uh one was I think about telling about the whole thing, what's happening and everything. And the second was where so my therapist said she was a counseling psychologist, if I remember, very senior. So that the whole thing about you is you are so grounded in reality,
Mm-hmm.
right? You are very much self-aware. And like, yeah, that's the problem. You're very self-aware. You know the problems. You make sure to solve it out. You work through it, and everything was. I think at that point everything was just right.
Mm-hmm.
I was managing it, but I was not acknowledging my struggles. That was the difficulty. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't about the whole fixing thing or solving. There was nothing to solve. The
Yeah.
only thing that was left was I did not acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
I did not
Everything else
acknowledge
was
my
happening,
feelings.
but the actual existence of the stimulus, as we talk about, that was not
Yeah.
there. I mean, the
Yeah, so,
acknowledgement of the existence of stigma.
huh, exactly. So, you know how sometimes you go on an autopilot mode, something is happening, you go on fixing,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just spiral out of control because sometimes you can't just fix things, you just have to process it
Yeah.
because there is no solving it, right? So, I was doing the outcome wala thing, but the beforehand. So, me being in autopilot, I did not even uh, sort of have the feelings, and I was numb at that point, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
मुझे ये था कि करना है बस अब काम इसको निपटाओ and then we'll see जो होता है देखा जाएगा.
Yeah, as you're talking about this, there's this visual coming to my mind जो हम
Hmm.
acceptance commitment therapy में बात करते हैं कि acknowledgement is the
Hmm.
very first step, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And the visual that they say is if you have a flat tire, you have to first
Hmm.
acknowledge that you have a flat tire. Even before you step out of the car, you start fixing it. You think of the resources needed to fix it, how you feel about the
Hmm.
flat tire in the middle of the road, all of that. But as you were
Hmm.
talking, I was getting this visual that गाड़ी भी चलानी है, चलानी भी है, पर टायर भी नहीं है, उसको भी फिक्स करना है, सब साथ में चल रहा है because the
Hmm.
acknowledgement practically is not happening.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So masters opened up a lot for me
Mm-hmm.
personally, professionally, humanly. I grew up. I was now a person who was more sensitive towards myself also.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is what changed for me in the masters. And MPhil. MPhil is, ah, my God, MPhil.
कुछ ज्यादा ही खोल दिया उसने.
The MPhil, see, MPhil is now more about, now you are no more a student.
Mm-hmm.
MPhil, mein you are not a student anymore. You are a working professional now. Because you sit in OPDs, you do your classes, you sit in OPDs, do your classes. So now you're a working professional who is also studying. So think of MPhil like that. And I'm sorry. So uh, it was a lot of change because earlier we were just students. So हमारा काम था आओ पढ़ो
Yeah.
and
The
you leave college.
responsibilities are also quite less.
Yeah, yeah. So you do your timely assignments and everything. Now what is happening is you are a student. Uh, you have assignments, dissertations, cases, presentations, the regular stuff, and but you also have OPD and patients and their file and their assessments. So
That sounds like a lot.
like yeah, so
Yeah.
it was a regular 9 to 5 thing also, but like 9 to 5 नौकरी लगती थी honestly.
Mm-hmm.
See, and the emotional stress in MPhil is different. I don't know about my other batchmates, but for me, MPhil first year was a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of issues that I can't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
System issues in the college. A lot of things again can't be disclosed, but it led to a lot of breakdowns. And as you know, that I was somebody who would just know information, and then I was still
Yeah.
that person in MPhil. Like one of my professors used to regard me like that. कि ये कर लेगी. So
Mm-hmm.
now this ये कर लेगी वाला attitude के चक्कर में I didn't receive any help.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And
So
it's sort
now
of reinforcing also, no? You
हाँ
can't ask
हाँ
for help. And the other,
हाँ
the Pygmalion effect also that we talk
हाँ
about.
हाँ the whole perfectionism thing.
Yeah.
So that happened, and that's when I had my first panic attack ever. So I had anxiety पहले. I knew it was anxiety, but it wasn't to the extent that कि impairment हो रही है,
Right.
प्रॉब्लम हो रही है,
Functional.
मैंने functionally कुछ issue हो रहा है. This was I think during my first year का exams.
MPhil
I had
exam.
a panic attack, yes. And I remember it so clearly because this was also the time when the Afghanistan wala issue happened, Taliban took
Mm-hmm.
over and everything. So that also triggered me. So the news was also very
Right.
triggering. The situation was also triggering. And this panic attack was so bad, I would wake up, throw up in the morning. I would go to my exams, I would blank out. I could barely write in my first year, final year exams. And that's what was the first sign because
Yeah, and so
me,
much for that perfectionism as well that
uh,
you're bringing out in the
Huh.
exams.
Me not. being able to write in an exam, that's a huge red flag for my health. And again, I would come back throw up again. So I had, I think, three papers, 3 papers होते थे. So two papers, one paper, luckily, because I was in test, it was a practical. For others, it was a difficult paper. For me, it was experiential. And
Mm-hmm.
that was actually the paper where I was the one who got the highest. Okay? So, and then another paper, stats research. तो वो तो कभी भी best friend नहीं होता, तो वो anyways manage. Now came psychiatry. I remember
Same
the
what?
subject, so psychiatry. This was my
Psychiatry.
favorite subject. Okay? Now my favorite subject, but I sucked at it.
Mm-hmm.
I nearly failed. My professor, legit after the exams, called me when the checking was done, like you nearly failed in it, but he managed to pass it because the overall performance was right, and that was it. And that was it. I rushed to a psychiatrist, sort of like an online appointment only.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had panic attacks,
So,
three
Sanjana, I
panic
want to
attacks
pause
in a
you
week.
for a
Huh.
second. Yeah.
Hmm.
What was going on? Like right now, you're thinking about it in
Hmm.
retrospect, you having your first
Hmm.
panic attack. But what was going on inside of you as you were observing yourself struggling so much, throwing up, blanking
Hmm.
out for the
Hmm.
very first time in your life?
Hmm. So, मैं honestly उस time exams थे. I could not think anything beyond those papers now.
Mhm.
My thing was I need to just retain it. That's it. कैसे भी करके just get through these papers, just pass. Because if nothing, after college you learn that see, I don't need the marks, I need the skills, and that's it. मुझे बस passing certificate चाहिए. So that was my focus. And I think in जितना भी span of exams, I had panic attack throughout before every exam. I am somebody who has exam anxiety, that I know, but usually it goes away. But this one impaired me to a lot of extent. My health was affected. Zero energy. Like how you study in your textbooks, na, ki crying spells, loss of energy. I did not sleep 3, 4 nights straight. My blood pressure was through the roof. For a what? 24-year-old, blood pressure through the roof. Doctor ने बोला कि what is wrong with you? I was prescribed normal sleeping pills जो generally देते भी हैं. I was on blood pressure medication for a while. So
This is
also to
after
add,
you visited the psychiatrist?
yeah,
Okay.
this is the first time I visited a general physician for a general checkup. कैसे हो रहा है? And this is also where I need to add to the context that I have hyperthyroid. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
so hyperthyroid, maybe there's something called as Graves' disease. It's an autoimmune disorder. So it also adds to the moods.
Mm-hmm.
Thyroid has a very significant impact on the mood. So that is something that was also told to me, and I never realized this is also. So it was not just one exam; it was also that other things were getting affected. So my thyroid is still not stable, and every doctor I go to, or anytime I have a psychiatric follow up, it's like you need to get it treated, get a permanent solution because the other things are happening, but this is also an important aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all
So
what were
yeah.
these other things that were getting affected?
As in like any stressor, like जैसे अभी work stresses me out. तब MPhil was a huge stressor. My doctor was. I luckily had a very sensitive doctor, and she said,
That is
"No, no,
a huge privilege to have.
yeah." I was actually surprised by the end of it. कि, इतनी अच्छी ये कैसे हो सकता
That's
है
so
मेरी
sad.
हाँ मेरी बात सुनी like that's the impression of a doctor because you tell them symptoms and you get sort of like that. So that was an eye opener. In the
Mm-hmm.
second year, things improved. The things stressing me out were not there anymore. And then my voice came up, and then nobody could sort of suppress me anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
my second year was better. It was stressful, but I think going to a doctor, taking medications helped. At that time, I didn't take therapy because honestly, mind same nature. I could not afford to have things more out because I just needed my body to be stable so that let me
Yeah.
get through the day.
Yeah, MPhil is a quite hectic schedule in
Yeah.
itself.
So it was sort of like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think with medicine be also it was a scary thing. I would ask the doctors, is it okay to take medicine? Is it okay to take medicines? Honestly, I think 2 days I was staring at my prescription.
Hmm.
कि मैं दवाई ले रही हूँ, and you have to go for different follow-ups, let's say gyne. I think that it was a huge cycle, honestly. I think I don't know. Like if you ask me specifics, then I probably would be able to tell more about it. But it's if I go on and on about it, it's a long story.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand,
Hmm.
and there is no possibility to cover every aspect
Hmm,
of
yeah.
what you've gone through in this one conversation.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I really want to thank you as well for opening up as much as you
Yeah.
are right now. It must not
Yeah.
be easy for you to go back to those times.
Hmm. It's I'm scared actually to be in that phase right now. I have triggers, I have takedowns. I
Mm.
think a few days back only, even today, early morning, I had my whole crying episode and I was like, oh, I have to talk about it today. So,
Oh gosh.
anyways,
Yeah.
something triggered it, but anyways. So, but then anytime it gets triggered, I feel why is it not getting better? I
Mm.
hope I don't go back to that phase because I do not ever want to be that person ever again.
I actually
Hmm.
personally also understand, like you
Hmm.
beautifully said earlier, that sometimes even though we can't empathize with the situation, but we can
Hmm.
empathize with the emotion,
Yeah.
with this fear that you're saying.
Hmm.
So I know that in my life as well, after
Hmm.
master's graduating, a couple of months or a year after it, I myself developed insomnia. Never in my life have
Yeah.
I had sleeping issues. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
whatever happens, I just sleep or something, I recover, I mean, cover it up or something. I cannot function without sleep. But when I notice night after night, I'm not able to sleep. And the impact that every day I hope that, okay, please make this the last night that I don't sleep. Please make this the last night that I don't sleep. But when it kept going for weeks, months, years, and now when I look back at that time, I honestly feel so scared. Even in the present day, if I have one sleepless night, I feel scared. I don't want to go back to that phase, which was terrible for me emotionally, physically, cognitively. Like the brain
Yeah.
stops working so much its own so many days. It's not easy to talk about these things or to even think about it. I mean, as courageous it is as it is to talk about it, it's very scary.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it is. It is very scary. I think even right now I can feel it in my heart that no, 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 not that. It's not that having a panic attack. I had panic attack. It's just so now it's like, yeah, panic attack, yeah. But
Mhm.
I think it's more about the impairment that it caused. That's the when you
Talk
said
more
that
about it.
cognitively, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
वो सब नहीं होना चाहिए वो वाला thing.
True. I remember I
Hmm.
couldn't think straight. My emotions
Yeah.
were exaggerated. My eating habits were getting impacted. I was craving more unhealthy things. Everything was getting disrupted. Everything. And the only word that I can think of, I think two words that make me feel scared are one, the helplessness that I faced during that time. Like the utmost helplessness. I was
Hmm.
ready to do drugs. Just make
Yeah.
me sleep.
Yeah.
That was the level. And I am a
Hmm.
person who's always like,
Hmm.
no, no drugs in my life,
Yeah.
not at all.
Hmm.
I was like, I'm
Yeah.
ready to, you give me the biggest of drug, I'll do it. Just
Hmm.
make me sleep. And the
Yeah.
helplessness was coming out of that lack of control. Like, what can
Hmm.
I do? I do not know. It's not in my hands. Everything that I've known, learned, whatever I'm implementing, but
Hmm.
it's not helping me.
Hmm.
What should I do?
Hmm. So exactly. So that the helplessness we talked about exactly like क्या करूँ और like how do I let me see it. How do I make it better? Why is it not going?
Yeah.
So I think that is what it's a constant feeling till now. So,
Mm-hmm.
because the thoughts I had at that point of time, like I had thought about suicide honestly, and I got scared about of it. Ki how I have I'm a very strong-willed person. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so honestly, my will to live and will to life उतना कोई बहुत strong नहीं है. Not like suicidal level, but for me it's like okay, दिन है जा रहा है because corporate life है, you lose your own life. So for me it's like each day go, but I've never had the thought ki I want to end my life. Never. And at that point, I was like, just please end this.
Yeah.
I can't fail. I can't. Again, the failure thing was what was here. Because see, in MPhil, what happens is, so just generally, क्या होता है? You fail in one exam, you can just have to do one exam. If
Mm-hmm.
you fail in one exam in MPhil, you have to repeat
Are you
a whole
serious?
year. Yes. And I was studying in a private college. My parents retired as soon as I completed MPhil. So the financially भी मेरे लिए था बहुत. We had, I think I remember my parents draining out their FDs,
Mm-hmm.
RDs, all the deposits to pay my fees because my private में पढ़ रही थी. So
Mm-hmm.
I had this constant guilt in my mind, which I also have it right now also. The fees was a huge thing. Like I can't afford financially one more thing, and my mental health was deteriorating, and basically everything was haywire. So I think luckily the whole medicines work. I think a lot of people say that नहीं करती नहीं लेने से आदत हो जाती है मुझे आदत नहीं हुई है.
Mm-hmm.
I am not addicted to it. I do not cut it down as per my thing. I do not depend on it. But if चोट लगती है तो पेन किलर लेते हैं ना.
True.
To so why not for the body? You get admitted in a hospital, you're injected with so many things, dude. You don't even check that. रोज रोज लगता है तो आप ये बोलोगे कि उसकी आदत हो गई है.
Mm-hmm.
तो
Yeah, I also want to bring in that aspect that having good doctors help.
yes,
It helps
having
a
good
lot.
doctors help a lot.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so I think that is there. I did ask about the addictive thing and everything because see, I think being a clinical psychologist, luckily we also study
Yeah.
psychopharmacology, so उतना पता था. But just on my end, I wanted to clarify it to you.
Yeah, as a
Extra
therapist, as a
therapist,
clinical
yeah,
psychologist, it's different when you start to take those medicines. Of course, you
yeah,
have your own
uh,
human-like questions.
uh. Exactly. And because for me, my thyroid was scary, honestly. It has, I didn't know a lot of symptoms were associated with thyroid, but so वो भी था मेरे लिए. So I think I had a really good doctor,
Mm-hmm.
so who explained me everything. For me, I had a 1 hour session with a doctor, with a psychiatrist. 1 hour.
Wow. It's a dream to me.
It's yeah. And I refer everybody to that doctor. And
Yeah.
surprisingly, what
And
happened is one
please
of my
do give
patients,
me that
yeah,
the
yeah,
contact details. I will link it
yeah,
in the show notes as well, as
yeah,
many
yeah.
people as they can
Uh,
reach. I mean, as many people
because
they reach out to the
yeah,
doctor.
because it actually happened. One of my patient was like, I consult this doctor. And like, you need to talk to the doctor. I was like, hi, doctor.
Oh, so nice. Client and also
Yeah.
colleague.
So I was like, I'm not calling in the patient capacity today. I'm calling as a psychologist.
I like that. I like that.
So I think, yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hmm. Um, I'm also thinking, Sanjina, as we're talking
Hmm.
about the really critical parts of your life and really intense ones, it's so hard to come out and talk about these. Use even words like I had suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
It is very hard for a human first, and
Hmm.
then being a mental health professional adds
Yeah.
such a complicated layer to it.
Hmm.
Even I would also consider myself, ki, I've always been focused on action. If something is
Hmm.
not going well, what can
Hmm.
we do about it? Okay, let's do
Yeah.
something about it. But during that bout of insomnia, I was just, that passive suicidal thought that if I do not exist, that did come in because the suffering
Hmm.
was so high. It was nothing else. It's just,
Hmm.
I mean, it's not nothing, but the
Hmm.
entire aspect was that
Hmm.
I'm struggling like
Yeah.
hell. And the only,
Mm.
like, we talk about suicide is not something that the weaklings do, as people a lot of times think.
Yeah.
It's the only way out. That's the only thing that gives hope sometimes. And that can tell the intensity that you were going through
Mm.
of these mental health struggles.
Yeah, it was bad. It is still bad. I, as I said, I was triggered, and my current situation isn't also that great mentally. Physically, luckily, we touch wood, all the evil eye and all the stuff. I'm better that. It's tough for me, honestly. It's really tough. So when a patient comes to me and said that, or nahi ho raha,
Hmm.
thak gayi hu ab bas, and I'm like, I know, I know how
Yeah,
that
you
feels.
really know. You really
I
know.
really, I think I tell them about my experience, and then they somehow it helps. The self-disclosure skill of
Hmm.
counseling, all the theory, but in practice, it actually helps. I think,
Mhm.
especially in terms of medications, honestly. Although you didn't ask about it, I'm talking about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please go ahead.
So, जैसे a lot of times clients will come to us and like दवाई नहीं लेनी मुझे आपको जैसे भी करना है आप करो बस ये दवाई छुड़वा दो मुझे बस
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like मैं दवाई ले रही हूँ and it's a little speechless very dramatic moment also like
Yeah.
they
Opens up a
just
new conversation in itself.
हाँ like आप भी लेते हो? कहाँ मैं इधर बैठी हूँ ना so I think they also see you somebody as in a power of authority I'm like
Yeah.
ठीक है let me utilize it so I'm like मैं बैठी हूँ ना इस तरफ मैं उस तरफ भी बैठी हूँ तो मुझे पता है कि आपको क्या फील हो रहा है
Mm-hmm.
so I think having that experience sort of helps them like दवाई लेने से कुछ होगा कि नहीं तो नहीं लुक एट मी आपने ये दवाई ली सिमिलर डोजेज मैंने ली थी सिमिलर इतना लिया था उल्टा मेरी डोजेज और हाई थी तो क्या लगता है मुझे देख के चलो यू टेल मी व्हाट यू थिंक अबाउट इट एंड हाउ डू आई लुक टू यू आई हैव टेकन
Mm-hmm.
मेडिकेशन आई हैव डिप्रेशन एंड द पेशेंट लाइक so
अब
so
क्या बोले?
अब अब and then it's like कि चलो ठीक है
अब करते
दवाई
हैं
ले ही
बात,
लेते हैं
चलो एक्चुअल वाली. Yeah. What you said is very important, Sanjina, because some people, when they say that, how can a mental health professional have these struggles? A statement by Peter Levine, who is the founder of
Mm.
somatic experiencing, it comes to mind. He mentions in terms of trauma that how trauma is a fact of life, but it's not a life sentence. Similarly, I look at mental health struggles as well. It might be a fact of your life. Yes, you are struggling. Yes, it might be with you for a long, long time. And it need not be a life sentence. We're
Mm.
here, we are walking, talking proofs that you can struggle and have a thriving career, relationships, friendships, hobbies. It will be hard. No one is denying that. But you can have those. It need not be the end of your journey of anything. And that for me is more like this is why more people need to talk about it.
Yeah. I think that's it. So you need to talk about it. So I think just it's difficult, honestly. For me right now also to open up, it's difficult. I know it's gonna go out and work. Although I think posted about it on LinkedIn so many times, but it scares me. But the amount of support I get from unknown people, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, accept भी करते हैं लोग. That
Talk
it's
more
a
about this. The
हाँ,
okay, so I want to talk about it, but let's
hmm,
just close the
yeah,
aspect that we were
हाँ,
talking about. So you mentioned how when you got into MPhil during the
hmm,
exam, first time you got a panic attack, but you did
hmm,
notice anxiety, traces of anxiety in your life
hmm,
earlier as well.
hmm,
Can you
hmm.
talk more about these signs and symptoms that you were
hmm.
getting before it turned out to be a panic attack?
Uh, so see, I'm a overthinker by nature only. Okay, so I spiral down to the conclusion. And now I know what the cognitive distortions are, but I would, if anybody talks to me, they know, यार कितनी pessimistic हो तुम,
Mm-hmm.
ठीक है? And I would constantly have anxiety in my body. I can't explain exactly. Like you have this weird feeling in your chest, in the stomach, in my hands. Like as I said that, exam anxiety hota tha bahut.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know it was parallel to it. irritability बहुत ज्यादा होती थी. I would have your typical घबराहट, बेचैनी. I would be restless all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But
And this
it
is even before, like when, what
even before,
time of
yeah.
your life?
I think I've always been somebody with
Okay.
anxiety. So I think I, I don't know now. I think it's part of my personality traits because I've seen it a lot in my family also. I can see
Okay.
like possibly they might not have at a pathological level, but they have similar. Like my mom is a very anxious person. Not outwardly, not that way, but चिंता करती है बहुत ज़्यादा, overthink
Mm-hmm.
करती है. She's like, and Papa also overthinks a lot. So they are overthinking people. And so I'm sort of like them also, very responsibility taking. Like it's just three of us. So we are very responsibility taking people.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of assuming responsibility for everything
Yeah.
was also, I didn't realize until then it was something to be concerned about. So I was that
Mm-hmm.
person. And I don't know. Earlier, see, now that I know clinically anxiety का कोई reason नहीं होता, but earlier it was triggered mostly by my school academics, performance,
Mm.
marks, tuition. Again, as I said, my life revolved around it. So that way. So I think, yeah. So I saw those signs. Physically, I could experience anxiety, weakness, hona, nauseous before, feeling lose
Mm.
motion before
Oh
anything.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that and overthinking was there because then my thoughts were out of control. I would cry a lot for no reason. I would just, I think at certain times there were reasons, but most of the time it was more of my thoughts that were making me sort of cry because it's not overwhelming is the right word. I would
Mm-hmm.
get so overwhelmed with my own overthinking. It felt beyond control. My sleep patterns were always disturbed. I'm a light sleeper anyway. So मेरा शुरू से like even as a kid my mom used to tell me you're not a good sleeper that way. बहुत जल्दी नींद खुल जाती है. So sleeping pattern wasn't very healthy. Healthy अभी भी नहीं है, but like again that's my sleep nature. So even if you give me a sleep medication I won't sleep through it. It's my कुछ लोगों का pattern होता है. So that wasn't that great. Uh, my moods were very घबराहट, anxious, yeah, irritability rather. I think at a certain age, if you're not anxious, you get irritability.
Mm.
Why is it not working out? Why is it? So those were the signs that were always there,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't realize could possibly be something else.
Yeah. And it's so difficult, like we were talking about the education system as well. At least in
Yeah,
bachelor's, there was no talk at all about these things.
yeah,
No talk at all. And I would hear this statement so many times as a psychology
it's
student,
just
as a psychology student. तुम्हें ये how you this is how you should think, this is how you should act, this is how you should emote. All of these
yeah.
dotted line messages were present.
Mm, mm,
I did not, I never thought of it directly until I started struggling, or when I came to
mm,
master, these things were pointed
mm,
out that you have
mm,
to be a human first. But
yeah.
they got registered till then. Bachelor's was 3 years. Even
हाँ,
I,
yeah.
yeah, I had
Mm,
psychology in school as well. So since
mm,
5 साल हो गए सबके बोलते बोलते बोलते.
हाँ,
Oh, I
हाँ,
didn't, just those injunctions were so strong for me.
mm,
And if
yeah.
I look at masters as well, there was no direct talk about what you can struggle
Mm,
with. There were indirect talks because our
mm,
masters just they
mm,
actually pushed us to seek therapy. So there was indirect
mm,
support that way that you can have your own
yeah.
struggles, but no conversations as such
Mm,
that took place.
mm,
Even with peers, we were all quite supportive, at least in masters,
mm,
and yet I
yeah.
did not remember a lot of open
Mm.
conversations around it.
Oh, I think this is where I differ. Is I had it in my with my flatmates, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. I'm okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
Because I'm
that
just
way, I think.
focusing on
Mm,
like as a community, as students coming
mm,
together. Of course, in our own intimate
yes,
relationships, we
yeah,
can
yeah.
have that.
So I think class maybe yeah. It was more about how clients will have it, but not about how you could also
Exactly.
have it. And
Exactly.
there's no issue with getting it checked. But I think some of us did went on an individual level connected with faculty. But yeah, on a mass level, I think that wasn't communicated that
Mm-hmm.
you too could have it and it's okay. So
Yeah.
I think yeah. You got that's a very interesting point actually. And I think
Yeah,
that's
and
something, yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
sorry I'm intervening. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
that when you do not state something that this can
Hmm.
happen, as mental health professionals, students who are getting groomed to become mental health professionals, there can be that again injunction that this is what you can't be or you should not be. Because no one is talking about it. Everything is about the client
Hmm.
and other aspects. What about us? It's like us as mental health professionals, our mental health got pushed to the side that this is a big thing. We are talking about everything under the sky. But what about our struggles?
I think that's a very, yeah, I just had a eureka moment. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think externally we all talk about it, but let's say in the very much in the system, we never talked about how you could possibly go through it. And let's talk. Maybe if it's something, let's talk about it. Then maybe this is a consultant you could go to, or the test, but हम लोग रेटिंग स्केल्स तो कर ही लेते थे, सभी का खराब आ रहा था, मेरा तो आई वाज वेरी शॉक्ड आई थिंक. So I think that hits. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of in a speechless movement right now.
Yeah, please take your time. And the
uh,
only word that is coming to my mind is permissions. We
hmm,
talk about this word permissions, especially in transactional analysis, that we need permissions as kids, especially, but even as students, we are kids in some way.
hmm,
So we need permissions about what we can and cannot do, what is okay, what is not okay. And I feel it's very important during that
hmm,
time that it's okay to not feel this, to feel these things yourself, that you're reading in a diagnostic
hmm,
manual, that we're talking
hmm,
about clients and using
hmm,
words like pathology, all of
hmm,
that. You can
hmm,
also go through that. And then
hmm.
what happens? It's very important to have that
Yeah,
exposure.
I think it's also, this is where I also talk about on the similar lines. When I got to know that I have depression, I was like, finally an explanation. It's like because every time it's like anxiety, depression, तो सबको होता है. Like we do have some anxiousness
Yeah.
and sadness rather.
Sadness. Yeah.
Won't go to the depression, but pathologically you never think about it. But I always used to think that why do I feel it's not just sadness, it's not just anxiety. I actually talked to my doctor. I think after one. So initially it was symptoms both aggravated. Say I did not talk much. I just told her what was I doing. I was crying throughout my appointment and everything. And then I was like, I don't know. Do I have a diagnosis, or is it just in my head, or is it just a momentary thing? And she's like, आपको ऐसा क्यों लग रहा है? Hey, you have depression. And these are not something that are in your head or something. You have depression. It's a very valid, it's a proper, you like the criteria do match. So like,
Mm.
and I don't know. Some people see these diagnoses as labels, but for me, it was an explanation that finally,
Mm-hmm.
finally, I feel it's, I don't know, I just felt acknowledged.
Yeah.
So I think it was, and then, depression, but then you have residual anxiety. Depression and anxiety are best friends. Okay, so if one is there, the other will come. So,
Mm-hmm.
so and then it was gradually, it was in the moment, it was anxiety. And I was like, okay, so mixed anxiety depression was the proper diagnosis. But then because the severity changes, a lot of, again, that's all ICD stuff.
Yeah.
So, so I do go in there, but it just, I felt validated and acknowledged.
Mm.
And somehow, yeah, internally, I felt at peace, honestly. It was after years that I felt an internal peace that no, I wasn't cribbing. It's real. It's very
It's
real.
real. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that is what helped the most also.
It's a very significant moment in your life. I can hear that.
Hmm.
And as you're saying that, I'm wondering what are these factors, personal, professional, social,
Hmm.
that could have helped you to gain this diagnosis or acceptance earlier than this? The question that I'm asking is
Hmm.
basically that there are some personal barriers when we start facing these.
Hmm.
Like you said, there were symptoms, signs here
Hmm.
and there. मैंने बोला यार ठीक है वो तो होता ही है सबको ये
होता है,
when it reached a certain level of a panic
हम्म,
attack of throwing up is when you started okay now अब
हम्म,
तो जाना ही पड़ेगा वाले
देना
कंडीशन
पड़ेगा,
में
हाँ।
आ गए थे right
हम्म,
what do you think were the factors that led to that delay in seeking help you have mentioned
हम्म,
things like personally that
yeah,
perfectionism
yeah.
what are some other
Uh,
things
so I think, see, a lot of stigma was definitely there in me also. I'll be honest, see, again, जैसे हम बोलते हैं दूसरों के लिए तो हम कर ही सकते हैं.
yeah
Again, what we talked about the internal and external.
yeah
Clients के लिए तो क्या है? Clients के लिए तो हम हमेशा validate करते हैं, but अपने लिए I think it was a very late insight, but I had so much stigma, the self stigma. I think this is
mm.
massive. I advocated this for in a one of the how used to we go for field works. I specifically took it up because that I think enough. उस समय I had that little bit inside that something I feel is a diagnostic thing, but that's not coming. Luckily, the
mm-hmm.
factors were settled, no triggers, and all of those things.
yeah
But self stigma बहुत ज़्यादा. Even before other barriers for me, honestly, self was a issue because I could not accept that medicine ki I think जरूरत नहीं. I
mm.
don't think I need medicine to that level.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
would you
think I
say this
need it.
was
Huh.
more, I mean, what was the percentage about medicines की जरूरत नहीं है because of you as a human, that the person you are, the strong-willed person, and as a mental health professional that you're becoming?
No, it was more about being me only.
Okay.
Because adversities I managed, adversities I managed. So I think through a lot of things happened throughout my life. So I think I managed them well. So I was like, no, I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm strong. So कर लूंगी. Luckily masters में उतना मुश्किल नहीं था चीजें.
Mm-hmm.
The personal front, there was a lot going on. Personal front, family, societally, everything was going on. But again, not something that would pull me down to the extent. Again, I said that वो impairment level दिया है ना, कभी fail
Mm-hmm.
जिंदगी में हुई नहीं मैं कभी. In life, like in life,
Yeah.
I've never, it's like never have I ever failed. So
Yeah.
that moment came and it was like, it's high time. Otherwise, see, uh, okay, so I think the topic I was not comfortable with, I'd rather talk about it. See,
Sorry.
family means the topic I was not comfortable with, I'd rather talk about it. Is again, I won't go much into it, but family, may I think we've never talked about emotions. I
Mm-hmm.
I am a single child, very loved, pampered, follow, Julie follow. I'm the only daughter, so I'm very loved. I have a very very good support system in the family. Okay, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि lack of support था, but mental health conversation का stigma तब भी है.
Mm-hmm.
ठीक है, I could not go and say it out that मैं upset हूँ. I remember I think I had my 12th result, scored decent, but I did not score up to my self expectations, and I cried like anything. And I remember my parents just would not leave me alone कि ये अकेले नहीं रहेगी. And there were a lot of times when I was struggling, and my parents would say कोई बात नहीं, क्या हो गया, मार्क्स कम आएंगे तो क्या हो गया, और मार्क्स अब कौन देख रहा है.
Mm.
ठीक है, because again, so I had that support, but I could not use the word depression. I could not use the word anxiety in terms of disorder.
Mm-hmm.
घबराहट हो रही है बोल सकती हूँ. And सब चीज में एवरीथिंग वुड बी लाइक अनुलोम विलोम कर लो, थोड़ा सा रिलैक्सेशन कर लो, सो जाओ, सो नहीं रही
Yeah.
हो,
Very
टेंशन ले
solution
रही हो.
focused or generic
या
response.
या सो क्यों चिंता कर रही है, बट आई कुड नॉट टॉक अबाउट that this could possibly be a disorder. However, I did slide it की thyroid की वजह से होता है.
Mm-hmm.
So I used the thyroid card,
Yeah.
and the doctors also said that things mood other than it being other factors, but it has a very strong significance to
Thyroid,
it.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, so let me use that card. So I think that stigma was there for me to reach out for help. कि मैं कैसे बोलूँ कि मुझे साइकाइट्रिस्ट के पास जाना है.
Mm-hmm.
आप जनरल डॉक्टर के पास बोल सकते. So my parents knew that मुझे बीपी की दवाई की जरूरत है, because the BP was going through the roof. दवाई नहीं लेती इशू हो जाता. So वो दवाई ली, and they knew that I was. I won't again name the medicine. It's a very common sleeping pill that's available. Doctors एक तो स्लीपिंग पिल यू डू नॉट गेट विदाउट डॉक्टर्स प्रिस्क्रिप्शन, बहुत ही मिनिमल डोज दिया था, बट उतना मेरे पेरेंट्स को पता था, सो आई यूज्ड टू मेंशन दैट आई कंसल्टेड एवरी डॉक्टर दैट्स पॉसिबल, एंड वो था। और सोसाइटली तुम साइकोलॉजिस्ट हो, तुम कैसे, तो दैट आई थिंक ऑल्सो द फियर ऑफ साइकाइट्रिस्ट ऑनेस्टली, टू बी जज्ड बाय देम, कोई सुनेगा नहीं, मैं कैसे समझाऊं मैं क्या स्ट्रगल कर रही हूँ, आई जस्ट होप आई डोंट एंड अप being admitted. I hope I don't end up being all the things. So that sort of all of these stop me from कि एक्सट्रीमिटीज पे कि भर्ती ना कर दे, ये वो कुछ उल्टा सीधा ना बोल दे, कुछ और डायग्नोसिस ना कर दे, कुछ और। तो फॉर मी इट वाज लाइक आई होप इट्स नॉट समथिंग एक्सट्रीम, सो दैट स्कैर्ड मी बिकॉज यू आर ऑन म्यूट।
What would have happened if it was something extreme within your like thought level?
So see, you know how it's a protocol, medical protocol. When you have suicidal ideation, thought you would have to
Yeah.
have somebody, right? So I was scared. घर वालों को तो नहीं बुला देंगे, because see what happens is even if I give my friend's number, a lot of time it's a chaos in the society because you get judged. Okay, so I was scared of revealing the symptoms that I was experiencing. I was scared of revealing the profession I was in because I did get judged, honestly.
Mm.
When I used to say कि मुझे होता है with general doctors also,
Yeah.
be it gynec, be it the thyroid doctor, because I
What were the
changed a lot of
reactions
doctors.
that you would get?
Stress हो रहा है मत लो.
Mm.
That was my gynae's response. I never went back to that ever.
Mhm.
So
And any specific responses they gave when you got to know you're a psychologist?
like, तो तुम्हें कैसे हो सकता है
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
कि तुम लोग को ना बस ये, एक तो यंग हो तो तुम लोग को पेशेंट देख के ऐसा लगता होगा तुम्हें है, या ये तुम जवान लोगों की जो भी है. So all of those things. I'm like, I used to get angry, but I could not say much because I'm actually, again, being very vocal, I get very vocal.
Mm.
I'm like, you know what, I'm going to respect you. You do not respect me, but I'm not going to go down to your level. So it was that. I think every doctor I went to had to, been to a lot of doctors, honestly, Soumya, because
Mm.
of a lot of things. So every time you say, ऐसे क्यों मुंह उतार रखा है, क्यों दुखी हो, मत हो,
Mm.
खुश रहा करो, योगा करो, सब ठीक हो जाएगा, कोई लड़के का चक्कर तो नहीं है. लाइक आई वाज शॉक्ड एट दैट स्टेज कि
Yeah,
लड़के का चक्कर होगा
very
तो.
petty
हाँ.
statements, very, very nonsensical statements. I
हम्म,
remember one when I was talking about my insomnia
हाँ.
with the doctor, and she's just like,
हम्म,
तुम तो साइकोलॉजिस्ट हो, तुम्हें तो सब टेक्निक्स पता ही है, तुम्हें क्यों
हाँ.
पूछना? I'm like, oh my fucking
My God, yeah.
what do you say now? उनकी दवाइयाँ काम भी कर रही हैं मेरे लिए पर ऐसी बातें भी बोले तो such a
हम्म,
struggle and dilemma
हम्म,
sometimes.
हाँ,
Where do you
हाँ,
draw a line?
yeah, yeah. And मैं PMS, बहुत सारी चीजें, सो मैं क्या बताऊँ.
Mm-hmm.
So my PMS was also really bad. I mean, mood low होना चलो initially again master से manage हो जाता, but my premenstrual was really really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to consult any doctor. A friend of mine was a homeopathic doctor. So I was like, do you think some medicine would help? I had a good long conversation with her. She's like, homeopathic, I understand, belief नहीं होगा, लेके देखो. If it works, good, continue it and consult me, and then कोई साइड इफेक्ट नहीं है उसने. इतना ट्राई कर लिया, ये भी कर लेते हैं.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it worked because I don't know, I think the factor being that this person was my friend, understood me
Mm.
well.
Trust.
Yeah. So my menstrual cycle was better, my moods were very very sort of better, like it didn't deteriorate or
Mm.
get worse or something. तो बट हाँ एग्जैक्ट ट्रीटमेंट नहीं था, क्योंकि मैंने सोचा नहीं था कि डिप्रेशन भी हो सकता है ये. बट आई थिंक दैट पॉइंट एवरी दैट पीरियड एटलीस्ट one part of my life settled. So I
Mm.
think that was where it started, the whole medication thing about moods and everything. That's when I, in my master's only, I started acknowledging it. Ki, ले सकते हैं कुछ तो दवाई.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
small ways the
Yeah.
acknowledgement was taking place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
And the
that.
judgment that you were talking about in terms of society, family,
Hmm.
it's quite significant. We use the word ki haan judge ho jaye. People will judge this, that, the other, but
Hmm.
it's quite deep. It's
Yeah.
very deep.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would say just a few people that
Hmm.
like you mentioned your
Hmm.
flatmate and some close people, the three
Yeah.
people, yeah. There is a safety there. And especially when we talk about our peers, they're also aware कि अच्छा ऐसे
Hmm.
चीज है. So we will able to talk to them, we feel safe with
Hmm.
them. But beyond those couple, handful of people, it's very hard. I still
Hmm.
know, like there are my childhood friends who are still like, oh सौम्या तो sorted है ये है तो उनके सामने अच्छा
Hmm.
perception ही
हाँ.
वही.
हाँ.
It's so hard to break it because first of all you don't know my intimate journey like the other
Yeah.
people do, so I'll have to tell
Yeah.
you. But I don't want to. That is also a layer. I don't want to go ahead and talk to everyone about every layer of my life. But the first judgment that
Hmm.
comes, how can you have it? And if
Hmm.
you have it, how will it impact your work? That even when I was struggling with my sleep so much, it took me months. I remember that one day very clearly when I just felt I cannot take it anymore.
Make it.
I was just doing things, घरेलू नुस्खे ये वो सब चल रहा था.
Hmm.
One point, my mother, I remember she was drying clothes in the balcony. I just ran to her. I hugged her. I started crying and I just said, मुझसे नहीं हो रहा और take me to a doctor. And it took so much strength in front of my
Yeah.
own parents. It's
Yeah.
more difficult than it sounds to accept
Hmm.
that weakness. And I am also a single girl child.
Hmm.
So the
Yeah.
star of apple of my eye.
Mom, yeah. Yeah.
Very, very, a lot of caring and, a lot of
Hmm.
pride in them as well when they
Hmm.
look at
Hmm.
me and all. So एक perception होता है कि will that image of me break in my
Hmm.
parents' mind?
Hmm.
Will that image of me break in the society in general?
Hmm.
That cancel culture anyways is so
Yeah.
high.
Yeah. I
That
think
takes
it's
place a lot. So I wonder, the judgment. I don't wonder, actually, I'm only wondering about the judgment word. It is very deep for us mental health professionals. It's very hard to talk about it. Even the way we present. So I know that because of insomnia for a lot of it, I started getting down.
Hmm.
Then that
Yeah.
consciousness came. Oh, मैं बाहर जाऊंगी तो लोग बोलेंगे
Hmm.
यार तुम तो
Hmm.
ऐसी थकी थकी सी लग रही हो. Oh my God, there are
So,
so many
yeah.
considerations to take in mind
Hmm.
when this happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in that time going to college was a struggle because I was you have this choking feeling गले में जब ये रोना नहीं है रोना नहीं है रोना नहीं है. It was a constant reminder to self, right? But I did end up screaming at a lot of people, so
It's also a
yeah.
privilege, since when we say mental health struggles हो रहे हैं तो बस थोड़ा सा बस छोड़ छाड़ के घर पे बैठ जाओ when we have different
Mm,
responsibilities. I know that. Okay, so let's talk about this
mm,
also. The impact of your personal mental health struggles on your work, in your work.
mm, So I honestly don't have time for my mental health in my work. Being a mental health professional, somehow your mental health again gets sidelined. It's a superficial thing that we care, we do, blah, 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 all that bullshit. That's total bullshit. Nobody cares.
Hmm.
You sick leave is for physical sick leave only. Mental health sick leave कोई चीज नहीं होती है.
Yeah,
My
even in
doctor,
mental health
yeah,
organizations, a lot of
yeah.
time.
My doctor scolded me. Okay, so this is the second doctor I'm consulting. Because online लेना था time, blah, blah, whatever. So this one was also really good. It's really good. Luckily I've been good. I've had good kismat with doctors.
Yeah.
This one scolded me that you have to take a week's break. I'm like, मैंने
कभी
कहा आप
कभार वो
लिख
डांट
दो.
भी चाहिए होती है.
मैंने कहा आप लिख दो. लिया नहीं मैंने ब्रेक, बट मैंने ना इधर उधर से ताना सबको मार दिया था. बट एनीवेज आई लाइक लॉट ऑफ पीपल इन माय ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नो आई एम डायग्नोस्ड. लॉट तो नहीं, दो तीन ही होंगे, बट द पीपल आर बट आई डोंट थिंक there's any sensitivity regarding.
Yeah.
Mental health. Even when I
It's
like
very
talk,
sad to think in the
uh,
community as well. There's
uh,
very less
like,
sensitivity. In fact, there are
uh,
researches that are coming up that say psychiatrists,
mm,
like counselors, social workers, clinical
mm,
psychologists. A lot of people are struggling with mental health,
yeah,
especially because of the
yeah,
nature of the work. We take in so much
mm,
secondhand
mm,
trauma as well. It's very difficult.
mm, yeah. I think in other organizations, see, मैं organization को blame नहीं करती. It's just a culture here.
It's a systemic
Everybody.
thing, of
ठीक है, so
course.
it's a systemic thing. Again, to defend myself, I'm not talking about organization. What I'm talking about is the corporate culture does not give a shit about your mental health. एक दो seminars करा देने से ना ठीक नहीं होता mental health. Having a fun Friday will not fix my mental health
Mm,
or the years of damage, or like a lot of people do shift, night shift, crisis counselor. It's almost like you have to be back and at the beck and call of your people. There's no work-life balance. बोलने की बातें होती है हमें. Honestly,
true.
these are not real things. These are
These are
mythical things.
privileges. These are
Privilege
privileges
नहीं
that
है.
not many
I'm,
have.
for me, it's a mythical thing. है ही नहीं ये चीज. I don't know why it exists in the dictionary itself.
Hmm.
Like it's not really much time. So you're
It's
just.
really unfortunate to think about it. And one of our another colleagues, Medha,
Hmm,
I recently
hmm,
met her and she was talking
hmm,
how even mental health we're working on a lot of
hmm,
individual things with clients and therapy with medication, but systemic changes are what we need at this point. We're talking mental health is important, but how do you bring it to life?
hmm,
Of course, especially in your work life, which is one third of your adult life
yeah.
spending.
Yeah.
So those interventions are needed
Hmm,
until the time they come in, and as we're talking more about it.
hmm,
So have you ever noticed your own mental health struggles coming
hmm,
in between your sessions ever with your work, with your clients,
hmm.
impacting in
Uh-huh.
a not so healthy or productive way?
I have. I've been taking sessions जब मेरा दिमाग थक गया. I'm bodily tired. I was not healthy physically. So yeah, it was there. मैं बहुत, I don't know इंग्लिश में क्या बोलूं, बेमन से सेशन लेती थी.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an active listening and it was just listening.
Yeah, like you
Uh,
100%
and
present still
yeah,
नहीं आ पा रहा था.
because I was so my things also manifest as pains and everything. So it's just not always sadness, it's the pain. So my क्योंकि मैं comfortably बैठ नहीं पा रही हूँ, my दिमाग is tired, I'm sleepy and everything. So I've had a session बुरा नहीं हुआ honestly. So I would consciously redirect myself to come back to it. But what has happened is हाँ कई बार होता है कि हाँ क्या बोला था, and then like
जोन आउट हो
it
जाते हैं.
so it does happen one or two times and then like then I'm back on track. So sessions I try not to do. बाकी तो जो भी the sessions that didn't went well was a different factor and had nothing to do with my this thing. But I've had days when I was so tired
Yeah.
I knew I shouldn't be taking it, but I had to take it. So there wasn't वही होता, you do not have an option.
Yeah, it's a very tricky thing. So we talk about
Hmm.
mental health professionals. We come in,
Hmm.
we talk to people, and
Hmm.
we always want to give our 110% and all
Yeah.
of that. Humanly, it's very, very
Hmm.
difficult to do that in any profession. We all have our days, moods,
Hmm.
phases, difficulties in life. I haven't
Yeah.
heard about anyone who's been at one level of productivity their entire
Hmm.
professional career. And
Yeah.
mm, mental health falls into that as well. We're also humans. We
Hmm.
will have our days. And the
Yeah.
basic thing that I want to, if any client is
Hmm.
thinking, listening to
Hmm.
this and
Yeah.
they're thinking, oh, maybe we therapists ऐसे ही करते हैं. So one thing is we all abide by that thing that
Hmm.
will never ever do any active harm to the client.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we talk about things like इतना ज्यादा प्रेजेंट नहीं थे, दैट मीन्स
Hmm.
हमारे दिमाग में जो
दिमाग में या
एक्सपेक्टेशन है कि आपको एकदम तगड़ा सेशन करना है, उसके हिसाब से थोड़ा नीचे शायद हो जाए.
Hmm.
But active harm does not. We actually we know if
Yeah.
it is reaching to that level, then we need to take a step back ethically.
Yes. I think that's when I actually stopped, at least like my own private practice, I stopped it. Like, this is where I can't take a risk. And बाकी सब भी manage हो गया, but yeah, as you said that zone out हो जाना, but the quality of session is maintained. That no way it is going to interfere with that session. I would sometimes just be like, just give me a washroom break, I'll come back, freshen up and just come back.
Exactly.
So it's sort
Yeah.
of like that. Have water and all of those things. I would sometimes like, आवाज नहीं आ रही है, मैं please can I have my coffee or something? Can I have that? So I think the clients are also. I think the beauty of this profession is your clients are also very supportive.
They are, they definitely
Like
are.
just some of them, ठीक है, थोड़ा सा होते हैं agitated, but then it's they are not coming from a
Yeah,
very healthy place. वो परेशान है, वो
yeah.
तो आप वो नहीं एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते, वो भी
Mm.
परेशान, and it's like so it's like yeah, but I think some of my clients are so supportive. I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah,
So I think that
definitely.
way.
It's beautiful
So
to
it's
see it unfolding. Like, even
yeah.
on those days when the session does
Mm.
not go as amazingly as we would have
Mm.
thought of, there's that thought which comes in, will the client come back? What will
Yeah.
happen? But they do come back
Mm.
again because there's no active harm. And sometimes even the clients acknowledge somewhere that this is a
Yeah.
human. It's not a
Yeah.
machine which will give a standardized cookie cutter shape
Huh.
outcome.
So I
Yeah.
think this is where I think it's also okay to sometimes keeping in context situation the client is like, I am sorry, I think today wasn't that great. If anything, you give me feedback. I know sometimes it's okay to accept that also, because
Absolutely.
it's a safe space, because I know this is my responsibility, this is my duty. I am sorry I didn't do it perfectly today, but I'll make sure that this does not happen ever again.
Yeah,
So I
for
think
sure.
that's also important to acknowledge that. So
And it's
feedback.
very, very brave to
Yeah.
acknowledge that in my entire career, I think there was this one session wherein
Mm.
it was not because of my mental health, it was
Mm.
something physical. Instantly, some pains
Mm.
started coming
Mm.
up because of, and I was in the middle of the session. It was
Mm.
not even I can cancel it beforehand.
Yeah.
So I knew I hadn't done great at all, and it
Mm.
wasn't fair. And that one time I acknowledged with my friend that this thing was happening, and if you want, we can do another session next week instead of that. But yeah, it's very important to acknowledge these things. Even some days I know if I'm completely will not be able to show up, I will cancel the session.
Mm. Yeah.
I will.
Mm.
And along with that, if on the other days, as a therapist, I have also learned some tips and techniques, tricks
Mm.
that work for me as well, how to
Yeah.
energize. Like I
Mm.
know on days when I've not, on nights that I haven't slept well and I'm not feeling well, Yog Nidra in the form of
Mm.
non-sleep deep rest, it helps me a lot.
Mm.
So I make
Yeah.
sure that before my morning sessions and evening sessions, I do one guided audio of that so that I'm present for my clients.
Mm.
So these are some ways that even though there are struggles going on for us,
Mm.
we are taking care of it. On days when we're not
Yeah.
able to be present, we might do things for us, but stay assured you're in good hands.
Yeah. I'm like yeah, I think I remember I was just crying before a session, honestly. I was like, was a session लेना, and I was crying, the नाक बंद वो सब मुझे cold था, and I knew that this client needs this session. So I think the internal motivation is, personally it may not be that great, but professionally that fire, that spirit, it just keeps going. What?
Definitely.
Let me
It's
just
there.
wipe off my tears, let my therapist face, and the session went well.
Hmm.
So I think that's how it happens. Sometimes you just like have moments before the session. As I said again, a lot of triggers to happen, a lot of
Yeah.
relapse, not the medically right word, but breakdowns.
Breakdowns.
Breakdowns
Yeah.
happen in middle of
True.
work. Yeah, I remember at my office I was crying for 1.5 hours straight.
Hmm.
और मैं पब्लिक जगह पे रो रही थी, तो I think I've lost that sense of शर्म of societally crying. I'm
That
like,
is
I am crying.
amazing. How do you do that?
I'm crying. I'm upset. I don't care if you see it.
Yeah. What
So
helped you to reach that stage, Sanjina? That level of acceptance and breaking a lot of internal contaminations that we have
Yeah.
built over time.
It was, let's say, I think in my, I'm somehow, again, I said, masters helped me बहुत ज़्यादा. It is, if I could afford this for the way it has
Yeah,
helped, I would, but I think it
for
made me
sure.
comfortable with my emotions and I gradually open up and everything. But I think MPhil, as I said, first year was hell. The second year, I was like, I'm upset, and because of the system needs to know it. Because anything that was interfering with the system had left. So now I had like new system needs new ways of working. No
Yeah.
way the old toxic way is gonna work. I think I remember I went something again something happened something. So a faculty said that, you know what, I understand it's you're going through a lot, and I was like, you know what, I started taking medicine. What more do you want me to do? I shouted at the faculty.
Mhm.
और मेरी अंदर से फट गई थी, ठीक है कि यार शिट मुझे चिल्ला दिया.
कर तो दिया।
And because something has happened and like वही स्ट्रेस हो रहा है, समझ आता है. I'm like, सर मैंने दवाई लेनी शुरू कर दी, अब और बता दो क्या करना है. दिस वाज माय वर्ब एटक, और मैंने चिल्ला के बोला था. देखा तो अंदर से फटी थी, बट अंदर टीचर वाज आल्सो शॉक की ऐसा क्या हो गया. सो ही टुक मी टू अ डिफरेंट रूम, अलग से बिठा के. मैं बात करने से पहले ही मैं रोने लग गई थी. आई थिंक दैट वाज द फर्स्ट डे व्हेन आई गॉट कंफर्टेबल, लाइक टीचर के सामने रो रही हूँ, एक्सीलेंट. सो बट आई थिंक दैट आल्सो दैट वाज माय दैट वाज द यूरेका मोमेंट ऑफ क्राइंग की
हम्म।
अब तो रो दिया.
या
ठीक है सर, आई वाज क्राइंग एंड जो भी है, सो दैट इज व्हाट ओपन मी अप. एंड
कभी कभार करने
या
से पहले भी लाइक वी टॉक अबाउट दैट एंटिसिपेशन फियर इज अ लॉट प्रेजेंट कि अगर मैं कर दूंगी, अगर ये हो जाएगा तो क्या होगा, बट वंस इट हैपेंस यू नो इट्स लाइक
या
अच्छा ज्यादा कुछ हुआ नहीं, ये तो ठीक था, कर सकते हैं।
हाँ, तो आई थिंक so as I said, my office, the previous office, the team was fantastic. I think it was the mindset because again, I think a lot of people came from psychology background, so वो थोड़ा सा sensitized भी थे. Somebody was a mental health advocate. A lot of people were mental health advocates, so we were very openly talking about it. So that way, crying was okay. I think उस office में मैं इतनी बार रो चुकी थी. I think लोग भी used to हो गए थे, but
Yeah,
I think I had found the safe space to express. So that
that's
was there.
amazing. I'm glad.
So I think that was that. So that again, I think you once for me it was honestly like एक बार कर दिया तो फिर से कर भी दूंगी तो क्या होगा, रो ही तो रही हूँ.
Yeah.
रोने में क्या गलत है.
Yeah, I mean, people are doing a lot of terrible stuff.
हम्म.
You're
या
just sitting here acknowledging your
सिंगर का.
emotions and crying.
या मतलब लाइक रोने में क्या गलत है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा यही बोलेंगे रो क्यों रही हूँ, लाइक मजा आ रहा है रो रही हूँ ऐसे just for fun. So what do you
Yeah,
think? Why do you think I'm crying?
I
I'm
love
tired.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. Now I'm thinking
Hmm.
मुझे भी एक बार ही ना पब्लिकली जाके रो ही लेना चाहिए, वो जो पूरा
Hmm.
जजमेंट का अंदर फियर
Hmm.
बैठा हुआ है ना, शायद वो निकल जाए।
Hmm.
एक्सपोजर, फुल ऑन एक्सपोजर करो।
No, no, I've done full on exposure. I've had ऑटो में बैठे बैठे टप 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 बह रहा है आंसू.
या
मैं कहा क्यों आ रहा है, अब तो कुछ हुआ भी नहीं है. देन आई नो लाइक चलो ठीक है रो ही
अब आ
लेती हूँ.
रहा है तो आ रहा है।
हाँ, अब आ गया तो. आई
या
थिंक this is where you talk about your body tells you that you need a break.
डेफिनेटली इट डज या।
So it's that.
Hmm. How about, so I know that you have started being very vocal on LinkedIn as well,
Hmm.
on social media websites,
Hmm.
yeah. How does that help you in terms of acceptance and breaking that fear of judgment?
So honestly, हिंदी में थोड़ा सा इसमें बहुत पड़ती है.
Mhm.
बहुत पड़ती है, डर लगता है to talk about it. But I think a lot of times, like in my messages, I receive like I saw how I started with LinkedIn, the increase in fan base or the connection base
Yeah.
was because I started talking about the struggles. So I think I realized that I'm not alone. And क्योंकि हम बात ही नहीं करते तो पता कैसे चलेगा. So and I was like, and a lot of people were I think people reach out for consultations on the LinkedIn social media, how and talk about medicine से ऐसे होता है, medicine से वैसे होता है. There's a lot of negativity related to psychiatric medicines, a lot.
Mhm. That
Just
people
for,
reach out to you to say that?
yeah. And also in my experience, a lot of my patients and a lot of mental health professionals who are also in medicine are scared about it. देखो डर लगता है because psychiatric medicines have a lot of stigma related to it. You'll get addicted to it.
Yeah.
You'll be dependent on it forever. It will not get over.
Side effects.
साइड इफेक्ट्स बहुत ज्यादा है और पागल और लेट मी और पागल तो नहीं हो जाऊंगा मैं मैं पागल थोड़ी हूँ जो दवाई लूँ so now this is where I thought let me put it out there. It was like a social experiment. I would have deleted it also. So
When did you do that?
okay, it social experiment.
Sorry?
क्या social experiment?
Yeah, when did you first think of posting it?
I don't remember. I think it was last year. So मुझे याद नहीं है honestly. I think 2 बार मैंने post किया about medicine.
Uh-huh.
One
On
time था तो
LinkedIn.
उसने yeah on LinkedIn I think 2 बार मैंने post किया था.
Mm-hmm.
So one time it was just a brief detail about it was more of a educative post about medicine. So I did also mention that I am taking it.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I'm taking it, I'm writing it from experience. I'm not coming as a psychologist here. So I mentioned how I've started it and I was scared as well. Uh, talked about health conditions and all of this. And just, I think it's a Purana post, but I remember, I think it was more about myths and facts
Mm-hmm.
about the medications. So, and then a lot of people came out and the things, you know what, I've also taken it. I have
Hmm.
also taken it. I've also taken it. And okay. So I think there was also movement going on at social media. I think it was post a pill or something like that. So
Okay.
a lot of people were posting medicines, but they were all foreigners, people abroad.
Hmm.
Because so that was the movement that was started. And I was like, हमारे भारतीय लोग क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं दिख क्यों नहीं रहा मुझे
Yeah.
like मेरी बात
हम करते हैं,
तो
हम दिखाते नहीं हैं.
हाँ हाँ तो वो वही था like a lot of hashtags था post pill again I can't remember
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
but a lot of people were there including mental health professionals in that crowd or to be the right word
Yeah.
so they were showing the picture of the medicine they take and they were writing about their experiences and I'm like wow this is what we need. And this is also where a lot of stigma breaking came in during the post after uh, sort of normalization, I would say.
Normalization, which occurred
That
when you
happened
posted that first.
posted. Yeah. So I think you received a lot of messages of courageous. All of those things, appreciative messages also, but a lot of people reaching out to thank you for doing this. See, that this is okay, that this is not something out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
I understand that a mental health concern issues हम बहुत normally नहीं देखते and our first approach is usually the Indian treatment but it's okay. This
Yeah.
आपकी बीमारी है तो ये भी बीमारी है. हम
Yeah. How was it for
again
you to read those messages once you posted that first post?
I think it was actually feeling that I have support.
You have a?
Honestly, I have support. I
Mm-hmm.
have support. So I don't know. I feel LinkedIn has given me a lot of unconditional support, honestly. Be it during my MPhil, be it during my mental health struggle, be it when I was looking for a job, even right now, for any professional struggle, LinkedIn has given me that community, that safe community
Mm-hmm.
of practically strangers, but a safe
Yeah.
space to do it. So I'm actually very thankful about that part. वो
Yeah.
post के बाद a lot changed for me, honestly. Because now people were reaching out with genuine concerns and I could address it on a mass. I would again make a post about it, like to reach out, but it was, let's say, a stigma breaking thing.
Definitely a
Mm.
stigma breaking thing.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I know a lot of people post about things, but then it started a conversation and
Yeah,
it
I'm sure
continued.
you inspired a
Mm.
lot of other mental health and non-mental health background individuals to post
Yeah.
and to start their journey of
Mm.
accepting, acknowledging their own
Yeah.
struggle.
So yeah, that was
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Has
Yeah.
there been any sort of a not so helpful impact? I'm thinking when nothing
Hmm.
exists in one direction, right? There's a duality in
Hmm.
all of the things, or even more parts to it. So if there are people who are supportive, there are people who are not supportive as well, who do
Hmm.
actually judge. It's not
Hmm.
just mind. People
Yeah.
genuinely come up and say,
Hmm.
like, why would I take therapy from a therapist who is themselves going through depression,
Yeah.
anxiety, right?
Hmm.
Has anything like that happened, or how has it impacted your
Hmm.
practice clientele?
Honestly, it has been summer. It has only been good till now. हाँ मे बी एक दो बार it came up in the session आपको भी तो है but then it was in the positive thing. Luckily I have not come across a space where in at least in context of my practice where it did not help me. I'm very careful with the disclosure bit and I think
Hmm.
also it's also the presentation that देख
Yeah.
के तो ठीक ही लग रही है वो वाला चीज भी होता है
Okay.
honestly कि
Yeah.
डिप्रेस तो नहीं लग रही है
Yeah.
तो that's
डिप्रेस तो
also
नहीं लग रही
हाँ हाँ so I think that's also and because when you tell me like मुझे डिप्रेशन है बताओ क्या लग रहा है ठीक हुई क्या मैं ठीक ठीक लग रही हूँ मैं लाइक टाइप क्वेश्चन ना पेशेंट लाइक ठीक लग रही हूँ मैडम हाँ आपको है like, हाँ so
Yeah.
I think it's always been a supportive in
Yeah.
a way. Societally, therapists taking medicine, I ignore that part where people are like, ऐसे कैसे कि इधर से
Yeah.
सुन को उधर से निकाल दो.
Yeah. And I
But
think अगर किसी के पास ऐसा कोई perception होगा भी दिमाग
हाँ
में, so they wouldn't
हाँ
reach you in that case at all. So what you
yeah
don't know doesn't hurt you.
yeah. So I'm like ठीक है जिसका जो again जिसका जो perspective है because
Oh.
sensitization on a mass it's still yet to happen.
It's
It's
a
evolving.
long journey.
Yeah.
It's a long journey. And I agree with you. A lot of times when my clients struggle, they
Hmm.
come and talk about sleep issues and all. And I
Hmm.
when very strategically self-disclose about
Hmm.
my own experience, they feel more hopeful than
Yeah.
demotivated. मैंने
Yeah.
अच्छा अगर ये कर सकती हूँ तो मैं भी कर सकती हूँ एक ट्रस्ट
हाँ
डेवलप हो गया ना एंड इट्स नॉट टू से कि फर्स्ट सेशन में फर्स्ट बार में जब कोई आएगा तो हम बोलेंगे सुनो
हाँ
मुझे मेरा नाम ये
हाँ
है आई एम एन अल्कोहलिक आई एम एन
yeah
इंसोम्नियाक आई एम एन एंशियस पर्सन नो
no,
इट इज
yeah
स्ट्रेटेजिक
it's
सेल्फ
it's
डिस्क्लोजर
yeah it's very strategic it's not like introduction में बोल दिया I'm a ex patient
या वहीं से भगा दिया हमने
yeah
या
so I think that yeah
Wonderful. So, Sanjina, if I were to ask you briefly, where are you right now in terms of your mental health journey, and what are some things that you're still working on?
okay so my mental health right now is going a lot up and down mostly down because a lot's happening again as I said that work life
Hmm.
balance life है ही नहीं so I need to find that bit of my life give myself that time and I think I took therapy way back again I had taken therapy before MPhil also so that's was the last I think it was again 4 5 sessions brief therapy लिया था I need to restart that now I know I need to but again उसके लिए time निकालना is another stress for me honestly to schedule so I think I am at a stage where I'm sort of rebuilding myself again, I guess. I don't know. I can't say. Like, it's almost like, let's say with each degree, I rebuilt myself,
Mm-hmm.
including the updates and all of those things. It's like Windows update होता है ना?
Software
तो
update आ रहा है हर
तो अभी
डिग्री के
अभी
साथ.
अभी software update हो रहा है,
Yeah.
trying to keep up with things. And currently, my mental health is a lot up and down. And I said, जैसे कि बोला कि downs है, but I think again. Because I've learned how to manage it well and
Mm-hmm.
seek, I now seek timely support. I do not delay it anymore. Never. I stick to my appointments. I am careless in the timely medicines लेना तो मैं alarm लगा देती हूँ
Mm-hmm.
for those. I've honestly missed medicines 1 week straight because a lot was going on में घर आती थी सो जाती थी like that way. So I think it's also lifestyle थोड़ा सा
Yeah.
change करना and all of those things. In process of establishing a whole new system too. which is conducive of my health. Because again, I wasn't vocal about my health, but I'm trying to be more vocal. How I used to advocate. I think socially बहुत advocate कर लिया. I think it's time for personally advocating for myself. So I think that's where I
That's amazing.
am.
I
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I wish you all the best for that personal
Thank
advocacy.
you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I wanted to just also add that we were talking about stigma and destigmatization.
Mm,
You posting on LinkedIn, you building a safe community,
mm,
us having conversations like this. They're all tiny tiny drops in the ocean. I hope this podcast reaches some student who's
mm,
studying psychology and understand that this is also a possibility and there's nothing wrong with you or with whatever you're experiencing at all. You can talk
mm.
about it. There are people out there. And no, you know that one thought that मैं मेरी mental health खुद fucked up है मैं दूसरों की क्या ठीक करूँ
Yeah.
that thought will
Huh.
come and you can let it stay. But
Mm,
honestly, in what I have heard from this conversation as well is it increases that sense of not sympathy, understanding, and actual empathy
mm,
a lot of times.
mm,
It has made us more sensitive to the struggles of our clients. When we say, I understand, we genuinely do with a lot of emotions, we resonate with it. And if I think about it, because of the research that I've done on sleep issues or
okay.
the experiences that I've had, I'm more conscious. Now I know that
Mm,
it's such an essential biological need that we, even before going on talking about heavy
yeah.
concepts, you need to assess the basic lifestyle of a client. You need to assess
Yeah.
things like sleep, dietary things, digestion, all of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, if anything, it has made me a better professional. I would say, yes,
Yeah.
I'm a mental health professional struggling with mental health a lot of
Mm.
times, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not.
I think that's where I am also. Like, you know what? I'm a human. I am allowed to have feelings. I'm allowed to be not okay. And again, as you said, I hope a student benefits from it because I think I remember telling this a student, you know what? You have a whole community behind you. Again, I was talking on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp with somebody, WhatsApp groups, and everything. Somebody expressed it yet. You know what? You do not have to worry. You've got a whole village around you to protect
Yeah,
you. We might not know each other, but we know how it feels to be there, and we are
yeah,
not letting you fall. So don't worry about that.
yeah. And
Yeah,
it's hard. I'm
yeah,
acknowledging that it's really hard because the
it's hard.
profession that we're in, some days are really harder than the others. You'd
It is.
survive nonetheless.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's where, talk about rock bottom hit kar diya, the only way is up.
yeah.
Trust me, you'll get. I think I would actually say, at least in the student community, at least to your community, reach out because you will receive somebody's hand to pull you up. Trust me, that will happen.
It will happen for
That's
sure. Just ask for
that's
it
the
and
just ask
start
for it.
building your own safe communities. You do not have
Yeah,
to, you can choose your own community.
yeah. You're not alone.
You're not alone, definitely.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming in, Sanjina, and talking about again such an intimate and sensitive part of your life. I could see that a lot of times it was quite uncomfortable.
yeah.
It was the vulnerability was quite high. Yeah, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that the more yeah, you talking and coming, showing up nonetheless.
You I think I'm getting comfortable talking about it because it needs to be said out loud.
Yeah. This conversation is also quite different. It's not like my other podcast where I'm a little structured and all. We're just talking and I like it. I think this is how I wanted this to be, just raw, however it
No,
comes out. Yeah. All right. So
I
as
like.
we're ending, Sanjina, I also want you to just put it out there. What services you're providing right now and where can people reach out to you?
So people can reach out to me at LinkedIn. So you can look for my name, Sanjina Bose, and they can reach out to me there. Otherwise, you can drop in my mail ID and they can reach out to me there. I'm basically available both online and offline at Gurgaon in Delhi. Full range of psychotherapy services and clinical diagnostic assessments. If anybody needs that, I'm available for both assessments and therapy. So diagnostic purposes, even documentation that are required for school and adults office corporate things. So we do that also. So again, reaching out to my mail and my contact number would be helpful.
Sure. I will add all of these details
Yeah,
in the show notes again. Anyone who wants
yeah.
to reach out. Sanjina is one of my top referrals whenever someone asks for clinical psychologist. I'm like, take it.
Good.
Sanjina Bose, go to her. So
Thank
she's
you. Thank you so much.
completely reliable,
Yeah.
trustworthy, and she is a great professional for sure. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks. That's my ego boost I need for the coming week.
For sure. You're
All
amazing.
right.
I can say that
Thank you.
in a blink of an eye, for sure. And this comes from my 2 years of experience in being studying with you. And also the other things, we get to know each other as person,
Yeah.
as an individual before a professional. So I
Oh,
completely rely on you. Yeah.
इसमें थोड़ा digestion of तारीफ is difficult.
Take your time, take your time. थोड़ा थोड़ा करके fill लो.
Hello.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sanjina.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
It was great talking to you.